The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we're going to review Austin's 2-1 loss at home to the LA Galaxy. We will preview the U.S. Open Cup match versus Louisville City, which is happening probably today as you're listening to this, including a potential Open Cup scoop from our very own Mike Cragnola. And we will also preview this weekend's league match away in Toronto. And we'll also cover some other Austin FC news. My name's Landon, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley. Landon, we talked about this last week. I don't think we talked about it on the show, though. I had the chance to have my mom in town for the first match she's ever gone to, my dad in town for the second match he's ever gone to, first one since 2022. And so we got to do the whole go to Turnstile, see all the people, see Jeff with a soccer ball on his head, jump up on the table and screaming at everybody, make the lap, see all our friends. Oh, and my nephew, 2 hours before the game, who was also with him, was in a Lionel Messi Miami jersey, and I was really, really worried about being the person that had like the kid in the Messi jersey. And luckily, my mom talked him into just wearing a T-shirt, and she bought him an Austin FC shirt in the stadium, so we saved ourselves trouble there. But
all right,
man, it was just great. I know a lot of people don't love the Saturday afternoon games necessarily, but if you've got a family and an 11-year-old and a teenage boy and you just want to go and have a good time and good weather and enjoy the whole community experience. Oh, and my wife even went too, which is like her first game when we didn't have field club seats. Even she afterwards was like, I like these people. These are fun. Maybe we should hang out with them more often. Like, game aside, that was an incredible experience.
So I also took, we took Ashley's parents with us, which they came to a game a couple of years ago, but ended up having like traffic issues and got there at halftime. And I don't know that they had the best time. But the soccer game was very much not their scene, but they ended up having a good time at the afternoon game with the good weather and everything too. So, how did your family do? Like, is a soccer game something that they could get up for, or did you have to kind of sell them on it?
No, they were kind of into it. I think they were mostly into it because they knew how much I'm into it, and my parents like want me to be happy and share my interests. I don't know if that's something that they would have found on their own, but being at stadium and like seeing the songs and the chants, the pageantry, and hanging out and meeting all the people, like they had a really good time, regardless of how much they love or don't love the sport.
Yeah, I think the weather helped. Probably any casuals have a better time as well.
Yeah. Oh, and I got criticism from a listener for like your background being way better than mine, so I'm working on some of this. But I also got a glitter polio gifted to me before the match, which is amazing. But also my older corgi, who loves to chew the squeakers out of toys, has been eyeballing glitter polio ever since it came home, and so I got to make sure it stays up on a shelf. So I'm going to just keep it behind me and keep it safe.
Your dog's going to evolve longer legs just to get to that toy.
Just to get it, yeah.
All right, let's move on to some soccer, Jeremiah. Where should we start this week?
Okay, I don't love this stat, but it is a true number, and this is after 7 matches. Austin FC is on 6 points. I'm totally putting this at the feet of R.A. Silva for introducing this potential number into my name. This is statistically the worst start after 7 matches in the history of the club, including 2021, which is not great,
Jeez.
But I guess my question is, like, does it feel like that to you? Does it feel like this is the worst team Austin FC's had in 6 years? Because it doesn't to me.
I don't think so, but I think there's a specific reason why. And tell me if this rings true to you, that this year, with all the guys missing that we have missing, it feels like there is at least a little bit of hope that things will improve once we get some of those guys back on the field. Whereas all those other bad years that started bad, it was like, this is who we got until like maybe August. Maybe in August, someone will come in and maybe help us sneak into the playoffs. But this year, it's like, no, we have guys coming back probably within the next month or so that will make our team better. And I think that's maybe why it doesn't feel as bad. Do you think that's true, or do you think there's other factors into why it doesn't feel as bad as some of these other years?
I think that is true, because I can remember being like if Musa Jite can come in 2/3 of the way through the season and be the leading scorer in MLS from there till the end of the year, like Austin's going to be fine, which is a very unreasonable expectation for anybody to have about anybody, even Driussi, right? Driussi, his first year in, comes in kind of late, and you can tell he's going to be really good, but he doesn't make that much of a difference. So I think that's part of it. I think there's still some positive vibes from the last two matches, like playing up to and competing against LAFC, and then for sure, like the way Austin played in Miami is part of it. Because this definitely seems like now, I think even 2022 was a little bit of a lightning in a bottle, like top to bottom. This seems like the most talented team that Austin has ever had when everybody's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably a more talented team, even with the guys we have on the field now, than we've had in some years past. So, yeah, the results aren't happening on the field, clearly. But I think maybe that little bit of hope, like, but if this, or if we could play like we did again in that game and every game, then maybe it'll feel better. So maybe that hope is misplaced and misguided and it won't get better, but it does feel that way right now.
Well, then I just talked about how we played the last couple of weeks, and we will get into sort of the disappointment and how Austin played this week. So one thing that I've seen and heard a lot about that I'm sort of starting to buy into, like, is playing up or down to your competition a real thing? Like, did Austin get up for LA and Miami and play in a way that they did not against the Galaxy? And if so, what do you do about that?
I think that's absolutely a real thing, because it's the same. You see teams who get up for playoff games or knockout games or like rivalries or whatever. Like, I think the psychological part of it is real, where you can amp yourself up for an opponent you view as superior, and then maybe aren't able to get to that place mentally for a team that you don't think you need to go to that place for. What you do about it, like, I don't know. Like, I think that's one of those things where you have a coach that is able to do that kind of thing and manage players that way, or you have certain players on the team who just are that way, and that's how they operate. Like, I think it's probably a combination of a few things, but it seems like whatever it is, this group doesn't have enough of it at this point in time.
Well, I thought we were planning maybe on going into some of this later, but how much of this do you think is, and you have to apportion this on a percentage basis, because otherwise you're going to tell me it's like a little bit of both. Like, how much of it is the coach not preparing the team for it to get up like that, and how much of it's the players not having like the internal fortitude to do that?
I mean, I would honestly say 50-50, which is,
I knew you were going to,
but that's like,
I should have said,
based on what I normally say, I figured you'd be surprised I'm putting that much of it on the coach.
Okay, that's true. The coach deserves 50%. That's a lot.
But I think what that looks like is not necessarily what a lot of people think of it is, where it's not just, give a rousing speech in the locker room before. I think it is a way that you manage your team and a way that you set the tone, not just that day or the day before, but the whole season and the whole week leading up to a game and things like that. And we've talked about Nico's demeanor is he doesn't seem like the fire you up kind of guy. I think he's a good arm around your shoulder kind of guy, which I think is a great guy to have in certain periods of time or certain circumstances. But I don't know if it's the guy who's going to get you up for a struggling Galaxy at home after you've played two really tough games against big opponents.
I think that is fair, and I get that. And one other thing I wanted to talk about before we sort of go into the break and go into the next thing is, this is the note I wrote. Like, the officiating was like Jackson Bentley in the independent media match. You remember we did this a few years ago.
This is a deep cut.
This is a deep cut where whoever the official might have been, who's constantly criticizing Austin FC on Twitter to this day, walked off the field, and like Jackson got to ref the second half as like a 13-year-old, and his response was to not interfere with the game by not calling anything at all, even when it needed to be called. And I feel like that's how this game got called on Saturday, where at first I was like, this is great, she's just letting everybody play. And I'm like, or not calling anything no matter what happens on both sides, including a goal that we'll talk about later. Like, do you have a similar take on how this game was officiated?
I don't. I think this is maybe going to be my most unpopular take this whole episode, but I did not like some of the calls live in the stadium, but upon rewatch, I don't have a lot of complaints about the officiating in this one.
Oh,
Should I expand or should I save it for the
you
moment?
Can go ahead and expand. Let me know. Let us know about it. Unless you have specific moments you want to talk about later, but like in general, maybe.
Well, there's one.
Give us a
big
couple
one.
things.
There's one big one.
I'm going to talk about the first goal. So like leave that one. Is there another one? Okay.
No, that was the main one. There were some
Okay.
fouls here and there that I thought that she got wrong, and upon rewatch, I'm like, honestly, there's not a ton there. There is some that I still disagree with, but I think that's going to be true in any game. But overall, like I genuinely did not have a lot of problem with the officiating in this one, and I thought it was. You can say that she let a lot go, but I think she was pretty consistent with that. So
she consistently let it go.
If you're going to let it go, let it go the whole game, and I think she did.
Yeah, and then the other thing I wrote down is because like they do get Galaxy gets a time wasting yellow later. And I assume that this is a reason you have like the yellow card accumulation rule, because otherwise I feel like every keeper should just wait until they get the yellow for time wasting every match when you're ahead, right? There's like very little downside to dragging it out as long as possible and getting as close as possible to taking the time wasting. And I feel like the Galaxy's keeper on the afternoon did a good job of like taking it to the edge and then finally getting called out on it, but saving some time for them when they needed it.
Yeah, it's the accumulation is exactly why it's why the accumulation rule exists, is for things like that. For a keeper, it doesn't matter, because like how many I would be curious to know how many keepers have actually reached the accumulation penalty and been suspended for that. I would guess if any, it's maybe one, but probably not even that. But yeah, to her credit, she did start warning Marcinkowski pretty early, like after they scored the first goal in the first half. I kind of would like there to be like an institutional rule applied where that's a bit more severe. I know they've done that with like the 6-second count and giving the a corner kick if a goalkeeper holds a ball in live play for more than 6 seconds. I think there should be something similar applied to goal kicks. MLS has done a good job of kind of eliminating a lot of the time wasting that has existed in soccer for a long time, and those rules that they implemented changed it overnight. And I'm so happy to see those things being implemented across the world now. I think this goal kick is maybe a spot where you can extend that a little bit further and crack down on some of the time wasting there.
Yeah, because to your point with the accumulation thing, and then like the being able to take a yellow card back from good behavior, it would seem like almost impossible for a keeper to be in a situation where they were like having a 1-goal lead in so many games in a row where it would make sense to do it, where it would lead to accumulation. So
right,
that's an interesting thought. Yeah.
Anything else before we take a break here, Jeremiah?
No, let's go ahead and take the break.
So we're going to do things a little different this week. We generally jump straight into the most recent match. Given this week's schedule with the U.S. Open Cup game against Louisville City on Tuesday, we're going to do that preview first. So I know there's folks who kind of take their time and listen throughout the week. We're going to do our Louisville preview first and then get to the rest of the game recap and news and everything after that. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with our U.S. Open Cup preview. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FVF Law.
FVF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they have their own podcast called Summary Judgment that you can check out wherever you get your podcasts.
You can go to FVF.law to find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FVF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balances. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Esperanza branch on game day, visit www.goamplify.com/moontower. All right, we are back. We'll get to our LA Galaxy recap. We'll get to our Toronto preview and some other news later on. But first, Let's talk about Austin FC's entry into this year's U.S. Open Cup, Jeremiah.
Yeah, let's do it. So on Tuesday night, it's 6 p.m., Austin will enter the U.S. Open Cup round of 32 away at Louisville City from USL. It'll be on CBS Sports Network. I think
That's
you can
Paramount
also get
Plus in streaming language, I believe.
Yes, Paramount Plus streaming or CBS Sports Network if your provider happens to carry CBS Sports Network. If Austin wins on Tuesday, it will set up a match in the round of 16 against the winner of either Dynamo or El Paso Locomotive, both of whom are probably very familiar to Austin FC fans. If it's Houston, it will be away. If it's El Paso, it'll be at home. And you kind of found an interesting tie here to like what happens if Houston wins, and we get really familiar with the Dynamo in a really short amount of time.
Yeah, so we play the Dynamo on April 25th at home. And so if we win in the Open Cup and Houston wins in the Open Cup, we will play them twice that week, just a few days apart. So that could end up being a pretty interesting matchup, and it'd be one home and one away, right? So that could end up being a pretty interesting Copa Tejas flavored week for us.
Yeah, it could be. And if lots of us have lots of feelings about Houston, and that week would probably really feed into it. As far as Louisville goes, I think most people are probably familiar with Louisville City from Damian Loss being there the last 2 years. And being, I think, what did he win? Like it's not the Golden Glove. What's it called?
I'm not sure if he did. I think he made like the all USL team though.
Okay. Yeah, made the all USL team both years, but they have been consistently one of the best teams in the league. They finished first in the East 3 of the last 4 seasons, including those last 2. And they're also 4-1-1 so far this year through 6 matches. So they are, again, a really strong USL club. They've reached the round of 32. They've already had to play twice. They played amateur side Southern Indiana, and then an away win over in-state rivals Lexington SC. That's kind of them as a team. I guess a couple other things. Like, they're super weird. There's some connection. We played them 6 times in 6 seasons so far already in the preseason, though never in a regular season. And they've scored 14 goals in league play coming from 11 different players, which maybe proves you don't need a number 10, and goals can really come from everywhere. And maybe Austin should learn from the way Louisville City's managed to play.
And I think if you take Open Cup into that, I think it's 12 players that have scored for them, with their top scorer having 4 in all competitions. So definitely spreading the love around as far as goal scoring goes. And yeah, like you said, they're a really good team. I think they started off 4-0-0 to start with, and then got a draw and a loss in their last 2. So a little bit of a skid for them, but still, like, as far as USL teams go, they're one of the best, have been one of the best for the last decade, and are currently, I think they're second in their division, and then maybe second or third in the, what do they call it? Whatever their supporter shield is called. Player Shield or whatever.
Shield, yep.
Yeah, they are, really good team still this year. Talking about their players, and I want to give a shout out to John Morrissey at Backfield. They do really, really good USL coverage there, which is, I mean, there's probably not a lot of places. I think with MLS, like, we complain about not having enough coverage, but there are a handful of national outlets doing their damnedest to do really good coverage. That's not necessarily true of USL, and John at Backhill is doing a great job. So I got a lot of this information, or at least like the trigger to investigate certain things a little bit further from his articles at Backhill. So thanks to John. But there's a couple of Austin FC connections. You already mentioned Damian Loss was their starter for 2 seasons before coming back to Austin. Manny Perez, who was on the 2021 Austin roster, played 10 matches at 10 different positions, it feels like. I think it was probably only 2 or 3, but it felt like 10 different positions, playing wingback and striker and whatever else at certain times. Another interesting name, I wouldn't have caught this if it weren't for the little photos on FotMob, but there's a guy named Jake Morris on their team, and I was like, wait a second, that face looks familiar, and like did some investigation. This is Aiden Morris's older brother. So Aiden Morris of Middlesbrough and formerly of the Columbus Crew. It's his 27-year-old brother who plays for Louisville. Other players to watch, Taylor Davila has been probably their most influential player the last couple of years. He had 9 assists in 2025, has 3 already this season. Their back line is anchored by Sean Toach and Kyle Adams, two veterans that play back there for them. And then Brandon Days is a 17-year-old that is already performing quite well in USL. You know how Austin hates to play against teenagers, so that might be trouble. Jansen Wilson is an influential presence in their attacking line. They play. We'll get into more of their playing style here in a second, but they will play with kind of a front three, but really it's like a striker. And then you remember when Austin was kind of playing that box midfield look, and the wingers would kind of tuck in and play in those half space pockets.
Yeah.
Their front three is like a striker and then two guys kind of underneath them, which will kind of float around those areas. And then their wing backs will push up high and wide and kind of provide the width there. And so Jansen Wilson is one of those pocket guys, and he's been quite good the last couple of seasons. Last year, they had one of the best strikers in USL in Philip Goodrum. They sold him to Lexington. They brought in a couple of guys to be his replacement, one of them being Christopher Donovan, who was like MLS sickos might recognize him. He played some games for the Union, was kind of a rotational guy for them, and then ended up in USL. And then their other striker is a guy named Tola Showunmi. Struggling with that one there. They're both big guys, especially Showunmi. I think he's like 6'3". They've been splitting time at striker this season, so neither of them have really taken the position as their own. But Showunmi has 4 goals in all competitions so far. I think Donovan has 1, but they're both physical presences up there in the box. As far as their playing style goes, they play with 3 center backs, but this is not like it is a back 3 and not a back 5 most of the time, if that makes sense. Like, they're playing with wing backs, but those wing backs are often wingers. And then a little bit like what if you watch like the Columbus Crew under Wilfred Nancy, where their center backs will be past midfield sometimes, and they're pressing high, they're trying to push the ball high up the field, and often trying to use pressure to win the ball back quickly and then play vertically quickly to score goals in that way. So I think that could be a thing that Austin could take advantage of, given that if you look at how he played against Miami, how he scored that second goal against Miami, if Louisville tries to play that way against us, then it might play into what Austin wants them to do a little bit, which it might be like what would be best for us, which we'll maybe talk a little bit more in the LA Galaxy recap. But I'm going to be curious to see how they approach it. Like, okay, we're playing against a bigger team. Will we go against what we're doing to try to respect the bigger team and not try to get caught out that way? Or will they say, we're playing at home, we're just going to play our game and see if they can match us?
Well, I think, Ben, one thing you mentioned, you gave credit to Backfield. And when I went and read up on this, just as far as the forum goes, I also went to Backfield. And honestly, every week we go to the away team preview, or we go to the game preview, it's the first place I go. It's like, if you're not subscribing to Backfield, do it. They're great. It doesn't cost that much. It's definitely worth it. As far as how they play goes, well, I guess I'm interested in what you think Austin's going to do but before tactically. Like, do we see rotation? I mean, because we were playing Saturday, we're playing again on Tuesday. Do you expect that there's going to be sort of a rotated lineup, or do you think Austin just rolls their best 11, knowing there's, like, I would be shocked if we saw Ilie Sanchez given him coming off the field. But, like, other than that, do you think we see the standard Austin lineup for this one?
I think we will see some rotation, but the way that I've seen a lot of the conversation around it in the Austin fan base is kind of an all or nothing conversation, where let's play all guys who have never played a game for us before, or let's play the starting 11. I think it's going to be somewhere in between, where start certain guys, rotate certain guys where it makes sense, where you have some stability, some continuity on the field, while working in some other positions, giving some guys some rest, and bringing guys back from injury in strategic ways as well. So that's what I would like to see, and it's kind of what I think will happen. It's just like strategic rotation and not an all-out line change.
Yeah, it feels like I feel like we've seen enough of Dessler. You might be able to see him at least as a starter, if not go 90. Maybe you get Danny there. I would be interesting I'll be interested to know what you think about what Austin's going to start up top, given like Ramirez has started, 3 matches in a row? Like, do we see Uzuni with somebody else, like, which is basically CJ, or do we see a different formation from Austin?
Uzuni is a guy who seems to have despite all of his other flaws, his motor is strong, right? Like he runs and he doesn't seem to get tired. So I'm not that worried about him. I feel like just roll him out, let him keep going. Ramirez hasn't been playing the whole game every time. So I feel like for that reason, you could start him as well. And so, I would honestly be a little surprised if we didn't see the two of them up top in this one. Just for those reasons, and like maybe planned a sub at a certain point, but I would honestly like to see as strong a start as possible at the beginning and not say like, oh, let's hold off and then bring in guys late. Like, let's come in with an energy, like get an early goal and don't save it for late, which is almost never what this team does, but it's what I would like to see them try to do.
Well, do you want to talk about what you expect to see or hope to see from Austin's style of play?
Yeah, and we're on the starting 11. I was thinking about like strategically. I've seen some people up in arms about Dessler not starting yet, and I want to push back on that a little bit too. I think it's just a fitness thing. Like if the guy's not ready to play 60, don't start him. And I think that's as simple as that. In a game like this where you can potentially go 120, like if it's tied at 90, they're going to play an extra 30 minutes. I think a game like this makes sense to start Dessler, where he's probably to the level where he can go 60. You're starting off with your stronger players on the field. Let him go 60. If Gallagher comes in, he can go the other 60, right? So it makes that sub strategy a little bit easier than the other way around. And so I would like to see Dessler start. Who are other guys? Like Danny is another question mark. Like he hasn't been out that long, so maybe he's good to go 60 as well. And you see like him and Dubrsarski get the start together. Left back, I think, is another one where Biru has been playing a lot. Like if we're going to tinker with things, like you say, oh, play Rosales there. Rosales has played a ton of minutes, so maybe he's a guy who gets rotated out as well. But do you have a preference of who you would like to see along the back line?
I think for the reasons you've stated, where Austin shouldn't rotate to the point where it's detrimental to the team, I like to see Biru start and like have Sean as an option rather than like rolling Sean out from the start, because it still feels like Austin's giving up a little bit. I think you can count on more time from Robert Taylor, but like I don't see there's any way you'd like start Robert Taylor in this one because he's just coming back. But like Rosales is playing a ton, so maybe you can basically have them play half a match. That seems like something that's probably reasonable.
Yeah, I think for both just like reasons of deserving it and strategic reasons, I think I might rather see John Bell play left back just as a stronger defensive presence. And then he's been decent going forward with the ball too. I think he has earned some playing time, so I think it would be a good reward for him. And then also just a stronger defensive presence than Kolmanich. So I wouldn't mind seeing him get a run out there and that being one of the places you rotate. Center back is tough. Like you want to get guys minutes, but also breaking up center back pairings is difficult. So
usually doesn't go well. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what you do there. And like, if you rest one, who do you rest? And like taking Heinz Ike off the field, it feels like a tricky thing to do at this point, just because of how important he's been to the team. So I don't know what you do at center back. I'll be interested to see what happens there. In the midfield, Irvin Torres didn't play with the second team on Sunday, so I would imagine that means he's going to be with the first team. Do we see him get a start? Like, I would be a little surprised, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think your starters come out of Danny, Duber, Sabovich, and hopefully we get some Irvin time. But I don't see that he's a starter in the cup.
Yeah, it just feels like a little risky to make that drastic of a change for a guy who hasn't really gotten any minutes with this group.
Totally.
So I teased this at the top of the show, a scoop that our own Mike Cragnola got. Me and Mike met up at the second team game on Sunday night. As we were leaving the game, it got a weather delay in like the 88th minute. And we bailed. I was like, okay, I'm not sticking around for this. But as we were walking out, 4 strapping young men in pristine looking Austin FC training gear are walking down the other side of the stands. They look up, I see their faces. It is Owen Wolf, it's Damian Loss, it's Riley Thomas, and it's CJ Fodre. I, being who I am like, oh, look, there they are. I'm not going to acknowledge them. I'm going to leave them completely alone. Mike, being who he is, does the opposite and says, Damian, you getting the start on Tuesday? And Damian gets a big smile on his face and says, I don't know, maybe. And then CJ turns around and has a big grin on his face too, which me and Mike both read as, yes, I'm getting the start on Tuesday.
For both of them or just Damian?
Just Damian. We only asked Mike. Mike only asked Damian. But the smile on both of their faces seemed to say,
gotcha.
Yeah, I'm getting the start.
It's going to happen. All right. Damian lost on Tuesday, which makes a ton of sense too. This is a kind of, we talked about rotation. That's a place where you can rotate, right? And see what he has to offer. And because he's been playing the last 2 years for Louisville every week and he's not getting game action. So it's a great time to start him.
Right. Your concern with changing a goalkeeper is like a lot of the concern is atmosphere, the level of the game. How can, and like, no, he's used to this atmosphere and to these, not only this level of the game, but these exact players. He knows these guys really well. So I think it's a good opportunity for him to step in, and also just for a promising young guy to say, hey, here's your chance. Take it.
We see it. Yeah, we see you. Go for it.
The atmosphere, I think, is an interesting thing to talk about because this is a very nice stadium. I don't know if you've seen footage or pictures of the stadium. It is a pro-level stadium. It's really, really nice. It's a little smaller than most MLS stadiums at 15K, but a really engaged fan base, really nice playing surface. So it will feel like a top-level atmosphere. I'm curious do you think that plays to Austin's advantage? Like, I could see it going both ways where, okay, it's a proper home field advantage where these guys have a fan base behind them, are on their home pitch, and feel really good about that and bring an energy. But I think another thing you hear about is for these MLS teams going to smaller teams is that, okay, the facilities aren't very good, the locker rooms suck, the playing service isn't good. That's not going to be the case here. They're going to walk into an MLS-esque environment when they're playing. Does that make them feel more comfortable and more at home while playing a quote-unquote inferior opponent?
Well, this is probably just me trying to cope with events from the past, but I would think that that's probably more familiar for them to do that and play in a stadium like this as opposed to going to San Antonio at a U.S. Open Cup match midweek and at a stadium where the lights were so dark it was like hard to see across the other side of the field because it was like being in a high school stadium. Oh, and also I believe that means Louisville City has more capacity than FC Dallas does this year because I think their stadium holds 12,000. So it counts as an MLS caliber stadium for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely something to like playing in an environment you're used to playing in a full stadium and not like rolling out to somebody's version of Palmer Field and then trying to like win a match away.
Yeah, going back to the playing style and like what I want to see or just kind of what things to look for, not necessarily what I want to see, but what we might see. We'll talk about this in the Galaxy game, as I kind of hinted at earlier, but it seems like Austin's game plan, like when they look their best, is when the other team is coming after them and trying to put pressure on them. That's when Austin's looked like the best soccer team. And so if Louisville City plays their game and presses high and tries to win the ball in transition, I think that's maybe good for Austin. Whereas if they sit deep, 11 men in the box defending, that's where Austin's had trouble. Like, I almost hope Louisville comes after us.
Which seems like a weird thing to say, right? But Austin's
it's like
yeah.
It's just the thing they're good at. It's like, I hope they do the thing they're best at. And like, but in this circumstances, I think it might be good.
All right. Well, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch on hopefully a streaming channel that I have that I've not had to determine yet. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this LA Galaxy match. And I think this is one where we're going to not go through every moment of the match. We'll hit on a few key highlights. We're going to hit on some themes. We'll hit on a completely frustrated Austin fan base for good reasons, which we also talked about a little bit about at the opening, but I think you can elaborate on some reasons why, like you share that and specific things that we're not able to do. So to set it up, in case you weren't paying attention on Saturday, Austin drops this match 2-1 to the Galaxy, giving up the first 2 goals, getting one back late, drops to 13th place in the West, and just whatever positive vibes that we had after the LAFC and Miami matches, I feel like just eroded immediately.
Poof, gone.
Just gone. Just gone. And it was so weird to we talked about my parents being there in that experience, and I wish I had their attitude. They're like, it was all fun. I'm sorry the sports ball game didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, because they were like soaking in the community environment so much, and I was so frustrated. I'm like, great, and I'm not going to talk to anybody about sports for a couple days. That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. Some of the pregame narratives leading into this one, kind of the ever-running health update of players that we got in the midweek presser last week, is that Danny might be ready to play. He ends up playing in this game some, which is a really positive sign to see. Owen, I think Nico was saying he's probably like a week to a week and a half out. So maybe Toronto, or is it San Jose, the next midweek game?
I thought it was San Jose or Houston, but it doesn't really matter that much. It's
so Toronto or the game after that, which one of those, which is, we've heard that before, right? But we're close enough now and they're saying like he's looking really good, he's feeling really good, that hopefully that's real now. And then you have this other note here about Brad Stuver. I missed all this, so catch me up on this here.
Did you? I just wanted to get back to this discussion because this is one we had, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, when We Are Austin TV sort of talked about how maybe Brad should get a look for the national team. And then I don't remember the account name right now, but like some account on Instagram posted this, then talked about how like Brad Stuver was the best Brad in the national team pool right now. And then Brad Stuver, who's like usually super quiet about this stuff, posted like an Instagram story, not a post. So like you had to be checking that 24 hours, like reposting that post about how, and adding like and I'm honored to be considered and talked about in this way caveat on it. But it felt like very much like Brad Stuver was leaning into how Brad Stuver should maybe be a candidate for the national team pool. I appreciate him being that sure of himself, because like I feel like sometimes he's humble to like his own detriment at some point. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. You're a freaking like MLS All-Star. You should be confident and think that you belong.
Yeah, if he walked with the swagger of Matt Freese, would that boost his profile a little bit?
Maybe not. But I've never seen him address anything like that, which is why I wanted to call it out.
Speaking of the like U.S. goalkeepers named Brad, Mike and Steph on last week's Swoon Tower were postulating if Brad would make the national team if he shaved his head and went bald like the other two goalkeeping legends, Brad Guzan and Friedel, who are both bald. So I think it's worth a shot.
Maybe, yeah. At this point, yeah, and those guys, I think, were both later in their career than the average MLS keeper in the pool when they finally when they became starters. Obviously, they both had competition playing at elite levels, but maybe you should give it a shot.
All right, so we got our starting 11. Was this an exact replica of the previous week's 11?
Yeah.
Yeah, so similar shape as well, where you have Gallagher, Heinz Ikes, Fatak, Biru on the back line. Sanchez and Dubrsarski as the holding midfielders. Rosales, left wing, Torres, right wing, and then Uzuni and Ramirez up top, with Uzuni kind of playing that free-floating false 9, 10, whatever you want to call it, with Ramirez usually kind of holding the line as a true striker there. Do we want to talk about stats at all? Like, are there any numbers we think are interesting to discuss here?
No, it was very, because I think you'll get into this. I mean, the numbers are like Austin had the ball a lot. They weren't very threatening. LA Galaxy also weren't very threatening. And I think you, from the way you've teased it, will kind of get into your frustration about that. So I don't think the numbers are that important as much as like the description about the on-field results of those numbers.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's the possession is slanted just because of game state. but the rest of it is fairly evenly matched, which I think is probably true of this game. It's a game of a few key moments, right? Where
Right.
who was creating moments, who was capitalizing on moments, and who did or didn't fall asleep in certain moments. So the game starts off. Austin gets an early chance. I think the 3rd minute, we get a chance in transition. Rosales plays a ball over the top for Uzuni, lays it off for Ramirez, and he creates a shot. I was feeling good at that point. I was like, okay, this is what we talked about. This running behind like we did against Miami, like we did against LA, and playing those balls like that and hurting them. And then it kind of, the first 30 minutes were okay. And we had some opportunities, some movement of the ball playing through them until we get to the final third. And at that point, it's even in the first 30 minutes when we looked at our best, it wasn't good. And it only got worse after that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I took from that opening challenge is like that was awesome, and also something that pretty much did not happen again on the night in any consistent way. Like that was it for us. I wanted to go to this. Ilya goes up in the midfield around 30 minutes near the midfield section and makes a pretty hard fall like on his head, and like immediately the trainers are called on, and he has to leave the match. He doesn't look, I mean, he looks kind of out of it. So one, I think I talked about this, like I don't expect to see him Tuesday, but also like, man, a first half sub really limits your ability for flexibility in terms of like the subs, the windows and what you can make. And then also like, you're just, I mean, it's Savovich from there on out, right? There's like effectively with Danny just coming back, you've only got 2 midfielders for a long stretch of time. And I wonder how maybe halftime adjustments would have happened differently if Nico would have had more options.
Yeah, I think we did feel the sub options a little bit on this one. And I talking about like making the sub, but Ilya specifically, Ilya and Dubrsarski were pretty quietly influential on this game earlier on with the way that Galaxy was set up and kind of playing through that midfield. I think there was like, it was understated. It wasn't breaking the game open, but they were doing little things with their movement, little deceptive passes to keep the ball moving forward that were helping Austin look the way that they did in this game. And when he comes out, that changes, I think, for a variety of reasons, which we'll get into in a second. But one of them being with Savovich coming into the game. I think there's been a lot of people who are done with him for a while now.
I'm one of those people. Yeah.
I think I am now.
Okay.
I think just based on the film that I watched of him in Sweden, I saw him play at a level and have this air of like classiness on the ball where he was really smooth carrying the ball, really nice long distance passes, long distance shooting, things like that. And so I still had that bit of hope that like, okay, if he finds his stride, if we can get him in the right context as far as players around him and the way that we're playing, that we can get that guy. I've given up hope at this point. I think like to the Galaxy's credit, I think when Ilya takes that fall, there's a little bit of a break. They're able to go over to the sideline and talk to Greg Vanney for a moment. I think they made some adjustments during that time that made it more difficult to do some of the things we were doing. But I think play also slowed down with Savovich on the field. And I don't want to put all the blame on him here, but I think he was certainly part of the problem. He had just kind of a negative posture on the ball far too often, where, especially later on, where we need to go score and we need to play quicker. And he's just playing very slowly, far too often, just happy to play the easiest pass available. And then Dubrsarski at times was telling him where to be and what to do. Like, this is a 21-year-old kid telling you, like a European veteran at, I think he's 28 now. And like Savovich looked a combination of like lost and disinterested, which I think maybe is just the way he carries himself and is not quite fair to paint that onto him. But that's what it read like. And that's how his game read on the day as well. And Nico talked about like a lack of urgency on the ball, especially later on in the game when we were down and needing to score. I think Savovich was lacking urgency on both sides of the ball, both while we were trying to play and break down their low block defense, and then also defensively, where he's been on the field for 20 minutes and he's jogging to close down a shot at the top of the box. I'm like, brother, like what are you doing? Like you're fresh, you're new, you should be sprinting here. And he's at the slowest trot you can imagine, not even worried about it.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was like it was so wild, and it's not great when both the body language and the play style like that are reinforcing each other. And so just a few minutes after this, we get this goal, which I found controversial. Brad Stuver was really angry about, and you're going to justify why this goal is okay. So I can't wait for this next part of our discussion.
Yeah, so this is a corner kick. Marco Royce plays the corner, ball comes in. It's played pretty near the goal, and so Stuver decides to come up, jumps, extends his arms, takes some contact, misses the ball entirely. The ball falls to Maya Yoshida, and he hammers it in. Brad wanted the foul here. I was going to ask if you thought it was a foul. It's clear that you thought it was. I think a lot of other people did too. I don't think this is a foul. I think like there is contact. There is a bit of a push there, but I think Brad needs to be stronger in that moment. Like if you're going to come off your line, come with force and be able to take that contact and come through that guy and punch the ball. Like you're going to get the benefit of the doubt there. If he trucks you, you get the foul. If you truck him, that's clean play in most cases. So know that he's there, come through with power, punch that ball away and get it out. And I know people are saying, well, like pointing at the contact, but I this is something I like to do when I'm trying to decide if I like a call or not. Imagine we score that goal and one of our players, I think it's Edwin Cerrillo who makes the contact on Stuver. If that had happened to us and that our goal got taken away for that contact, how would you feel about it?
That's not fair. That assumes I'm a rational actor, which I don't think I've ever claimed to be. I do like that Brad's like, I can't say anything else or I will get fined. What's the who was the running back for the Seahawks? Oh man, beast mode. Anyhow, he did the
I'm
Super
just
Bowl.
here so I don't get fined.
Yeah, I'm just here so I don't get fined. Yeah, that one. I feel like that was Brad's comment. I understand that. I found that goal was scored in the end where we were sitting, and I found the whole sequence to be chaotic and confusing, and I had to go back and watch it yesterday to even understand what happened, because obviously it's one of those they don't show the replay on the field for. And was there even like a hold up for a VAR check or anything, or did they just kind of immediately roll the ball back up?
Yeah, Tori Pinso had a finger to her ear for a brief moment, but then play on, like pointed to the circle and said, let's go. So they did look at it. They just didn't think much of it. And
is this the one where she was yelling at him to give the ball back, or was that on a different situation? There was a moment when he was hanging onto the ball as if he was going to get a goal kick, and eventually she started yelling at him. I don't remember if it was like after that goal or
I think it was probably because he was going to hold on to it, trying to give VAR extra time. So I think it was in that moment when she was like, "No, come on, bring it over here. We're going to start the game again." Yeah, this might be an unpopular take, but I'm totally fine with the no call there.
Okay, well, not much else.
One other thing of note here. Guess who was marking Maya Yoshida during that corner kick?
I'm going to guess Basard Sapovic.
You are correct.
Okay.
He gets totally lost, is late to get there. Biru is like zonally marking that space, and maybe he could have come at it a bit more aggressive, but the flight of the ball, I don't know that he could step forward anymore and still actually get the ball. So Yoshida sneaks in front of him and wins it, which Yoshida's really good in the air, so credit to him. But he absolutely dusts Sabovic, and Sabovic is completely lost trying to mark him. So take that for what it's worth.
Great. So I don't like not a ton happens more in the first half. For me, in the second half, the results don't come from this, like as far as the outcome goes. But like what I remember thinking in this match is when we've talked about how Austin, it's often not been deep enough where they were like putting on guys that might make the game better in a sub mode. But 61 when Dessler comes on for Gallagher and Nelson comes on for Dubasarski. I'm like, all right, like this is the chance. Like it's a like for like, but a more talented player on defense, and like Nelson coming in means that maybe there's a greater chance in attack, and he's made a difference in matches before. So at that point, I'm thinking like maybe we are going to turn this around. And it was the first time I felt like those subs happened, and it gave me joy or positivity. And obviously, it doesn't work out that way because the goal comes like 7 minutes after that. But I was wondering like what your take was on that.
Yeah, super happy to see Dessler come on and just be playing and looking strong and looking fit like that. Yeah, that's always great. Same for Nelson. And I think after the game, Nico said that Nelson is probably good, like in a good place to be able to start a game at this point. He didn't say that explicitly about Dessler, but yeah, to see those guys coming on the field was great. Like you said, I don't think it changed the game a ton. Part of that is just due to Galaxy kind of closing up shop at a certain point in the game and just bunkering really deep. It's tough for any team to play against a bunkered defense. It's especially tough for this Austin team to do it. And yeah, we just weren't able to make a real difference. And so we talked about like the way we beat Miami, the way we beat LA, or not beat them, tied against Miami, the way we scored against Miami, and stayed in the game against LAFC. Whenever a team bunkers down against us, like I think the recipe's out there now. Like that's all you have to do to shut down this team is to put a bunch of players behind the ball. And we could not do anything. And I don't think there's any subs on the team that were going to change that really.
No, that's very true. It's just like it's a team that's not able to disorganize the defense when they sit back like that. There's like not enough, quality on through ball. There's not enough clever incisive passing, and there's not just whatever you need to be able to do that. There's not enough like speedy play to do that, to be able to really make a difference. When you get in that situation.
Nelson came on and was able to get a few one-on-one opportunities and create a little bit of danger, but whenever they have that many players in the box, it doesn't really matter. And we got some good crosses off, some decent crossing positions, but the service wasn't very good a lot of times. Galler had some pretty bad crosses. Torres played a couple of bad ones. So just nothing was good enough in the final third in any capacity, tactically, executionally, or like style of play wise. It just wasn't good enough.
All right, well, let's go on to the next. I'll start with this stat for the LA Galaxy goal, the 6th goal that Austin has led in so far in the final 15 minutes in 2026, the earliest of those. So now basically Austin's given up, I don't know, like a dozen points or something, I think, total on the season at the end of matches. This one's an Eric Tommy goal. This one's like a Galaxy team goal for success. I feel like it's an Austin team goal in terms of like lots of people failing together in small moments, but like walk us through this.
Yeah, I think Svatak fails big at the end, but there was a lot of failures that led to that moment. So it actually it starts off with Uzuni stealing a ball while we were pressing. And so it ends up really hurting us, the fact that we stole a ball while pressing them. So he steals it. Dessler is kind of in the midfield at this point. I'm not sure what rotation led him to be there, but he sees the ball get stolen. He pushes upfield to try to support. 'Cause we're down. We need to push ahead and try to get that tying goal. So he runs forward. We end up losing the ball again. And as they play out, thanks to the MLS broadcast, the camera cuts away and I miss the next 5 seconds of what happens. But when it cuts back, Dessler and Savovic have both run over to the right sideline and are marking the same player. All this time, Eric Tommy is running into the gap up the Galaxy's left side, our defensive right side, where Dessler would have been if he was in his defensive position. Nobody spots it. Nobody covers that area during this time. So they play Tommy through into that space. And now Tommy's running with the ball and Svatak and Heinz Ike are 2v3. And so as Tommy approaches the box, Svatak tries to slow play it because he has Joao Klaus, who came in the second half, running behind him. So I think he's partially trying to just slow play it and cut off the passing lane to Klaus. And also knows that Eric Tommy he's really dynamic on the ball. Like that's one of his main skill sets is that burst of speed with the ball at his feet. And so I think he knows, like, okay, if I step too early, I'm going to get beat and hang Brad out to dry anyway. But at some point, you have to engage the ball. You have to make Tommy make a decision. And Svatak never does that. He backs up. And at a certain point, Tommy has a clear line to that far post. It's a nice finish, and he places it perfectly, but it's 1v1 with the keeper from not that far out. I don't know what the distance was, but a good MLS player will finish that, and he did.
So I think at this point, nobody thinks that Austin's going to win this match. We do get a goal. I don't know. That didn't give me a lot of hope at that point, but anything that builds Mircea Uzuni's confidence after playing well the last couple matches and then getting his second goal of the season is something I think we should all celebrate. And then I know it's just the hockey assist, but Facundo Torres continued to make goal contributions, although he still hasn't scored a goal in 7 matches, which I think is a little bit surprising. And there's good things overall to think about this goal, even though on the night it doesn't make a lot of difference.
Yeah, and the finish is really, really well done by Uzuni as well.
The finish is great. Sorry. Yeah, I meant to say that too.
So this comes from a corner. They're playing it backside to where all the big boys are and ends up getting knocked down, falls to the top of the box where Uzuni lines up the shot. It's bouncing still, so he catches it really well without trying to hit it too hard and kind of hits enough power, but like side foots it to place it into that top corner. Really clean finish. He doesn't get a chance to celebrate because everyone just grabs the ball, runs back to midfield. I don't think this got caught on the broadcast. I don't know if you saw it, but Uzuni started yelling at the sideline. And it was out of frustration at somebody or something. I don't know what it was. If he knew they were checking for VAR or whatever, or if he was yelling at our bench. I don't know what it was, but he was yelling at somebody, which was interesting to see right after you score a goal. And the Galaxy wanted a VAR review. I watched it back. I did not see anything that was worth checking. And they did check it for a second, but not very long and let it go. So consolation goal for sure, because it didn't matter. But like you said, nice to see him get a good finish and maybe build a little confidence there.
Yeah, I somewhat did take it as like frustration with officiating. It was one of those it's one of these things I hate, where when any goal happens now in the VAR era, like there's like 5 guys throwing their arms up in the air, whether it's like a reason to or not a reason to. But it seems like
as a fan, not getting to like fully celebrate that goal either.
Yeah, because you're never confident once that happens that like it's gonna happen. So that part's a little bit frustrating. So yeah, he gets that. We get what was that before CJ came in? We get a couple like late subs. Maybe it was after, but not a lot happens between then and the end of the match. Yeah,
CJ again brought energy like he always does, but had a decent little offensive move where he makes a clever little turn towards the end line. Plays in a cross, and Dessler gets a good header on, but Marcinkowski makes a nice save. That was before the goal. After the goal, Biru gets a chance where, again, Uzuni and Torres are playing together on the right side. Uzuni plays a really nice left-footed cross towards the far post. Biru beats his man and meets the ball, but it bounces kind of awkwardly and kind of catches him in 2 minds. And so he doesn't know if he should go for the early first time hit or let it bounce and catch it on the second time. And so he kind of does nothing. It bounces awkward, comes up off of his shins, and then he tries to catch it with the second touch, and Marcinkowski's there and grabs it. Just like it felt like seconds later. I don't know how long later it was, but he gets another chance where somebody plays him through to the end line. And he just like kind of gets his feet tangled up and just lets the ball roll out of play, which was another really dangerous moment that he just kind of beefs it for not really knowing what to do with his feet.
Well, maybe that's the reason. Maybe he should get a little bit of a break and figure it out. Maybe that's what we know about what's going on. So I think let's go on to the thing I liked that we've talked about already is Uzuni had no quit in him and ran up and down the field the entire 90 minutes. With an energy that I don't think anybody else playing for Austin FC had on the afternoon.
Yeah, his physical motor is very strong. Like he can run for days, but I think there's a mental capacity to that as well, where he just has that desire to just do it the whole game. So kudos to him. I think you saw a couple of times where one of them, it was because Uzuni made a bad pass. tried to play a ball to Rosales and it misses him. It catches Rosales kind of awkwardly, and where like they're like leaning one way and then it'll just kind of freeze as the ball goes behind him. He does that, but then doesn't turn and chase the ball down to like counter press it. Uzuni sprints 20 yards, takes the ball off a guy, plays a pass, and then turns and yells at Joseph for not running after it.
Oh, man. Yeah, I forgot about that one. But yeah, I mean, good for him. Good for him for like a lot of players, especially DPs or whatever, would like just kind of be frustrated and stop. And he never gave up. And he, at least on this night, he did run harder when he made mistakes. I think we talked about a couple of those, but he was trying to make up for it.
While we're on the subject, like Facu Torres, I think to his credit, and then also one of the reasons why Austin kind of falls apart at certain points in game, he works really hard defensively, not only tracking back, he does do that, but in the press, where we'll often keep those two guys pretty narrow. And then as they play the ball wide, we're asking them to run out and pressure those wide balls. And so Rosales and Torres are asked to do a lot of running in as the other team is building up. As they get tired and it's harder to do it, they're able to kind of play around those corners pretty easily, which is, I don't think it's like a criticism against him. I think it's just like maybe more credit to him for being a DP and willing to do all of that running. But you also can't like expect a guy to be one of the main offensive creators and do that kind of running the whole game. I don't know that you can necessarily do both, but I've also really liked him, just like how involved he is in defending. I think I said this in our like scouting report that I saw in watching tape of him, but he has continued to do it where as we're setting up our defensive shape, he'll turn around and check defenders and yell at them if they're not in the right spot. So I love seeing that from him.
Yeah, I'll move on to a couple things I didn't like. There's basically two versions of the same thing. Like Nico Estevez in the post game with the old, we deserve better, we should get a result, we drop points, like continually doing that. And then also the blast from the Josh Wolf's of past saying we weren't ruthless enough. I just thought like using the exact same word is one I was like, oh man, I don't need to hear ruthlessness chat again in post game press conferences. And I think you could talk about a thing you didn't like, which actually directly ties into what Nico was talking about.
But yeah, I put that Austin still can't break down a low block, and I think Nico is right in saying that the team needs to play with more speed with the ball. They need to play with more ruthlessness. They need to have a bit more bite as they're trying to break down a low block. All that is true, but it is also partly on him to make sure the team is able to do that. Like it is, if you look at a lot of teams in this league where they have very clear patterns of what they want to try to do. If you receive the ball here, there should be this off-ball run and this off-ball run. And you're like a quarterback checking down, like this is option 1, this is option 2. If it's not there, go here. And there's like these, it's not necessarily like a playbook, but it's these like a sequence of contingencies. That is how like most soccer offenses operate. And yes, the players should have more urgency, should try to move the ball quicker. But you know what would help them do that? Having a clear plan of what they're trying to do. So like Nico is right, but it's also on him. He needs to let them feel comfortable by having a clear plan of what they're trying to do in those moments. And it seems like right now, our plan is bring the defense towards you, open the field up, and try to play vertically through a stretched defense. When you give up a stupid goal early and they then bunker, that game plan's out the door. What now? Like, what's your plan now? And we did not seem to have a plan at that point.
Which I remember last week, we talked about how it was nice for Austin to have a plan as opposed to 3 weeks ago. And now we're back to Austin not having a plan. So before we take our final break.
I have a couple more things.
Wait, okay.
Let's end on a positive here. Another thing I liked is the physicality that we played with against Gabriel Peck and Joao Klaus. We were really making them work for every inch, leaving in pushes after passes. I saw when Klaus came on in the second half, Biru was pulling Klaus's arm 50 yards away from the ball when he was not a passing option. But it was just like, I'm going to make you work harder just to get back into position. And it was things like that over and over and over where, like, these are guys who use their physicality to beat you. And so if you can do any little extra thing to make them exert energy, to get frustrated, to be a little bit more tired for when they do try to use that physicality against you. Like I love playing like that against those guys, especially in a game where, like you said, Tori Pinso was letting them play. She was not going to call fouls. And so take advantage of that, beat these guys up. And I know it didn't lead to us winning, but I did like that aspect of this game.
Well, I think Gabriel Peck must have called for a couple he must have had a couple foul shots early that didn't come to pass, because Jackson Bentley was all over Gabriel Peck. Like the whole game. He's like, stop being a wimp. You suck, just screaming at him the whole time. And I didn't know like why he was, but I think that's probably what it was. I think he was like trying to draw fouls early and didn't get it. And
yeah,
my boy just decided he was his enemy.
He left one in on Biru later in the game. And because they had been going back and forth at each other, Pinso called them both over and was like, I'm going to give you a talking to. And Peck is like whining at Pinso. And Beer runs over and just gives Peck a hug, as if to say, like, no, it's cool. We're best friends. Like, we're good. Which is like the most Beer thing to do.
Totally.
Okay. Sorry. I cut you off I think you were taking us into a break.
No, that was a good moment to share. So no, we talked about sort of Nico, and we see these questions, I don't know, like every week. And I feel like we talk about it too much, but I think we can tease now that as Austin's in the places in after 7 matches, like whether it's reality, the coach might be on the hot seat. We can get into that when we talk about where we go from here, and then we'll preview Toronto after that.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sales Wilson Realty. Do you need to score your next home? And maybe not spend $34 million in designated players who don't seem to put the ball in the back of the net? Then talk to Sage Wilson. Don't get caught offside in this market.
Sage Wilson will give you DP output at a supplemental rate. The right strategy can turn today's opportunity into your winning goal. If you're looking for Sage Real Estate advice in Austin, contact our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com. All right, we are back doing things a little out of order. So let's cover a little news and then do our Toronto preview. Jeremiah, what do we have here?
I think let's just talk about where Austin stands and where we go from here. And one thing we didn't mention last week is it's a pretty heavy game load between now and early May, and especially if Austin wins this next U.S. Open Cup match, because that's an extra match. So now we're looking at like 2 games a week this week, next week for sure, and potentially the following week. The competition's not as strong. I wrote this like continues question mark to be against teams not at the top of the table, because after we played LAFC in Miami, we're like, oh, well, the schedule gets easy, and then they immediately go out and lose to LA Galaxy. So I don't think anybody can assume that there's any kind of easy schedule.
And then when you're at the bottom of the table, everyone's above you.
Everyone's above you, right? So Austin's not going to play any teams lower than them. And when we talk about the Toronto preview, they've done a frighteningly good job of like some off-season roster turnover in a game that I thought would have been super easy last season. So, I mean, my question is now where we are, we're 6 weeks out from the World Cup break. Do we expect this team to gel at all, or are we just going to like struggle and get a point a match and hopefully not get so disconnected from the final playoff spot in the Western Conference that everybody can get healthy and also get their stuff together and make a long run in the second half of the season? Like that's my big question for you as far as what we look at going down the road.
There's enough games that I don't think you can approach it if you're Nico Estevez like from a psychological standpoint of just hang on until the World Cup, because I think it's 8 league games, 1 guaranteed Open Cup game, hopefully 2 Open Cup games. There's a lot of soccer to be played. Once you get there, you're close to halfway through league play. So I don't think you can approach it from a psychological standpoint of like, let's just hang on for dear life, get to the break. Like there need to be changes made now as far as like performance goes. I'm not saying like you have to change everything and start over from a clean slate. I'm just saying like there needs to be a turnaround. There needs to be some points earned in this stretch, because there's too much of the season gone. We have not done enough early in the season for us to rely on these guys being back after the World Cup. So we need to get something out of this stretch.
And then
and the competition is not that easy, really, because Toronto's not been great, but it's away. Like, home field advantage is real in this league. San Jose is away, and they're really good right now. Houston it's the Kopitheos. You never know what's going to happen. St. Louis is quite bad, but they've had our number when they've been bad before. So there's nothing easy here.
And then San Diego is the one after that, right?
Minnesota and then San Diego.
Oh, Minnesota and then San Diego. Yeah.
Both on the road.
Teams better than us and both on the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So, yeah.
Where do we go from here, Landon? Sorry. It seems terrible.
We got to figure it out.
Like,
Owen Wolf should be back. Like we said before, Nico said maybe as early as Toronto. If not, then hopefully San Jose. When he comes back, he's not going to be 90 minutes fit. He's going to have to build up and start with some sub appearances probably. Vasquez, they're saying May right now. Again, he's going to have to build up his fitness as well. And then also like physical and mental comfort coming back from an injury like that as well. So I don't think we can bank on those guys. Like this is on Nico Estevez and like kind of turning this team around right now.
So then the question becomes, is there a situation where Austin is in such bad shape going into the World Cup break that I want to ask if you would. No, I want to ask if you would, because I feel like you're more forgiving generally of keeping coaches on than many fans are. Like, is there a line where you're like, this is so bad, we have to make a change?
Yeah, a lot of times on these kinds of questions, I like to answer like what I would do and then what I think the club/Roto would do. And I think in this case, it's maybe the same answer, where if we get to the World Cup break and we are, I don't know, what's the line? Let's say 12th or lower. So one spot above where we are now. It's like 12th through 15th. If we're still in those slots, I think you strongly consider making a coaching change during the World Cup break. I will caveat that with saying not necessarily doing it just to do it. I think some fans approach this as almost like a punishment to the coach of like, he's been bad, so we have to fire him so he learns a lesson. I want to fire the coach so we can bring in a better coach.
Right.
And so I hope that Roto's ear is to the ground, that he is maybe even making phone calls. He's got inquiries out of this summer when European seasons are over, the World Cup break happens, we have some room to breathe and some time to kind of explore options. If Estevez doesn't turn this team around, I would almost like to see him make a change then and try to take advantage of that break to bring someone in and almost start a new season after the break.
Yeah, and I've seen a little bit about like that if you do something like that, you don't have like the current coaches back or whatever. But I think like if Ro's doing his job, he has to be planning for every scenario. And he needs to understand who's available and what that might mean. Who's available, who he wants, when the time is right. Like, this just has to be part of his job. So, like, just like when we talk about players, right? When every player deal, you're like, oh, well, we have like 7 guys in the pipeline, hoping one deal comes across the line. Like, it's got to be the same for coaches, right? You have to be grooming your next potential coach because, like, that's the reality of the world that we live in. So I think he would be negligent in his duties if he's not trying to figure out who is the best person I can bring in during this break. Hopefully that man's name is Wilfred Nancy, given how things might go or not go.
Yeah, absolutely. The professional thing to do in this circumstance is to make the players and the coach believe that you have their back while also looking for all of their replacements all the time.
All the time, yeah. I mean, it's as like soulless corporate shills. Like, that's exactly the same thing that's happening in our lives every day, right? Like, why would it be different in sports?
What is your answer, Jeremiah? Where do you draw the line, or like what?
Well, I was going to draw it at 12, but that's where you drew the line. So like, I can't. I think a little bit of it's dependent for me on right now. The gap is very small between like 12 and I think 9, if I remember right. So I would maybe look at if you're sort of below where like there's a line of separation, you're below the line of separation wherever it sits, whether it's 11 or 12 or 10, then that's where I would make the move.
Yeah, so like more of a touching distance to playoff spots kind of
Exactly.
position.
Yeah, that's where I would
Yeah.
do it.
As far as like what the club might be willing to do, they've spent enough money on various kinds of buyouts here and there that I'm sure they're not like eager to do it. But one of the things we heard about Nico Estevez and like why maybe he was one of the options was that he was A, here and available, but B, cheap. Like, doesn't cost as much as a big European name you're bringing in. Also, I think there was some early reporting that I'm not sure if we ever got this confirmed, but that Nico was on a 2+1 deal. And so if that is true, then he's on a club option for that third year, meaning they can just let him walk away at the end of the season. As things are going now, I don't know that there's a lot that could change that would make me think they should extend that. If we bring back these guys, everything clicks and we're firing on all cylinders and like look like a really good team, sure, maybe. But with the body of evidence we have, I don't know that that's going to happen. And if it does, like, I'm not going to have a lot of confidence that he was the reason it happened. It's just like, oh, we have good players who are playing good soccer now. So if you're not going to keep him on after this year anyway, it's not that big of a loss to cut your losses midway through and use the summer to bring in guys who might not be available in the winter when that contract is up.
Right. I'm going to quote. No, I'm not going to quote because you listen to the show. I had a friend of mine today on a call that was talking about like a thing. And he's like, he went into like why things were all bad and wrong and it was all going to be a disaster. And at the end, he said, I hope I'm completely wrong about this and everything works out great. This is kind of where I am with Nico. Like, it seems like this is going to a bad place, but I'll be super happy to be completely wrong about this and for this team to turn it around going into the next week and be in 7th place at the break and everybody get back and like have a strong run for the end of the season. It just doesn't seem very likely to me.
Yeah. Very well said, Jeremiah's anonymous friend. All right, should we get into the Toronto preview?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start with the the details of the game and then the Los Verdes watch party. So Saturday the 18th. Again, this is another early one. So this is kickoff. Their watch party starts at 11. Kickoff is at noon. It'll be at Meemaw Brewing, which is one of my very favorite places to go and hang out. It's a great space in Southeast Austin. A lot in street parking, outdoor setup, family friendly, playground, tons of food trucks. Should be a really good time. Wide variety of beverages. So if you are looking for something to do on Saturday afternoon, it's a great place to go. Cool place to hang out. I'm
a big Meemaw fan as well, so definitely check that out if you're going to watch with some other Verde folks.
Yeah, so as far as Toronto goes, this is one interesting thing that I just happened to read in the preview. So this is the 5th of 9 straight home matches that Toronto is going to play because, is it BMO Stadium? Is it their stadium?
I think it might have changed. It might be something else now, but no, wait. LAFC's is also BMO. Right?
I think there are 2 BMOs. Yes.
Yeah,
I think
that's what it was.
One of 2 BMOs. This one, they're playing 9 matches in a row at home because they have to turn it over to FIFA for significant renovations and upgrades in preparation for the World Cup. So basically, they're locked out of their own building for a few months. So
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so there was the article I read was like people are like, well, it's pretty terrible for the long term because that means they're going to play almost all of their home matches before the World Cup break, which is going to be a real problem for the run in. But that's like a weird little quirk. Last season, they finished 12th in the East. They've got guys that you know coming in. So I think the biggest ones are Josh Sargent, Walker Zimmerman, Daniel Shallowy. They sent a whole bunch of expensive Italians out last season during the season. And then during the offseason, Sean Johnson and some others. So they have done a lot of good moves that have built them for the long term during this offseason. And it has paid off somewhat. So they're now 6th in the East, and they've had 3 wins and 2 draws in the last 5 matches. So when I was in the preseason looking at this like match on the schedule, this seemed like one that Austin should win. It should be one of the proverbial bonus games. But I mean, Toronto's played pretty decent this year, and they're at home.
Yeah, one of the moves they made last season that has been good for them is Georgi Mihailovic. Except in this game currently, Georgi Mihailovic is going to be out for several more weeks, so he's not going to play in this game. Zimmerman was questionable for their game over the weekend, so there's a chance he does not participate in this game. So they've made some big moves, but not all of them are going to play in this game against us. That being said, Daniel Shalhoub is you'll know him from us playing him when he was in Kansas City. He's not a player you like build your team around, but if you have other good players in the team, he's a great player to have in your team. Like as a piece, I really, really like Daniel Shalhoub. Josh Sargent, I mean, if you've paid attention to U.S. men's soccer at all, like you know who this guy is. And he's kind of fit the description so far. Like he looks really dangerous. He looks like the guy they kind of thought and hoped he would be. And so I think he's going to end up being a really big signing for them. Will they have enough to kind of continue that run without these other big names in the team? We'll see. But still do have some other guys in the team like veteran players, Richie Larea and what's that midfielder's name? Jonathan Osorio. So kind of veteran players who aren't the biggest of biggest names, but are very, very good MLS players. What else do we need to know about this one? I mean, it's going to be heavy run of games for Austin. So I think what we see on Tuesday will kind of dictate what Austin puts out against Toronto. Do you have a preferred strategy or what you expect or hope to see as far as rotation goes?
Well, I'm hoping, but I think we get the most of it out of the difference between the match Saturday and Tuesday, because we've got this one on Tuesday. On the next Saturday, then we've got San Jose midweek. So like in theory, there's like enough recovery time built in there in between those two that doesn't matter. So I think it's most interesting to see what we get out of the Open Cup match in terms of rotation and like where Austin happens to go, because shouldn't have to do more than one thing about Sargent. I think is like maybe interesting is like Ajimong had a season-ending Achilles injury, which maybe opens a path back to the national team for Josh Sargent. So I feel like he's going to be extra motivated to score all the goals he can between now and the break. And that is maybe a problem for Austin, because I think he was definitely outside the pool before, and now I think there's a chance that he's going to compete with Ricardo Pepi for that last forward spot. So, or maybe both make it. I don't know.
He seemed to be on the outside looking in for maybe like non-form reasons with Pochettino, because he was playing well in England too and still not getting called in. And so there might not, nobody seems to know exactly what's going on, but there might be a reality where he scores a bunch of goals and still doesn't get called in.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
If guys keep getting hurt, then maybe it forces Pochettino's hands. But so, yeah, I think he's going to be motivated regardless, if not for the World Cup, just for coming back to MLS and kind of putting his name on the league in that way. But he's a dangerous player. Definitely have to account for him. I think you're right about Austin's rotation, though. Like this one, like the Open Cup game and this one are far enough apart that maybe you don't have to count too much. But I think you do have to look ahead, and kind of what we were talking about earlier, where not making wholesale changes, but strategic subs where, okay, this guy's going to go 60 in this one, planned sub in this game, and then the next guy will do the same, and just kind of like rotating guys in and out in that kind of way, as opposed to a fresh 11 for each game.
Yeah, and I think I would have said before this week, like the 11 that Austin ran out against LAFC and Miami and this week is probably your best option right now for like guys that can win a game. And I think the rotational thing would be, you should be able to get a whole match out of Danny by then. And I don't know if you get anything out of Ilie, like he'll be back by then. So like that seems like a place. But I kind of like an Austin FC with a midfield of Dubrasarski being the deeper lying sort of ball winning guy and Danny being the ball progressing guy. With what we have available, that seems like the best 11 that Austin could put on the field. So hopefully that's a reality for what Austin's able to do against Toronto.
Yeah, we talked about that in preseason, right? Like if Dubrasarski can step up and become a guy you can rely on in that way, then our midfield makes a lot more sense in that scenario. But we weren't sure if he would do it. It seems like it's happening. Like he's a guy you can lean on in that role to do a specific thing for you and give the guys around him a little bit more freedom. So hopefully that progression continues. But yeah, I think between those guys in the midfield, you have a little bit of rotation. Between Rosales, Torres, and Nelson, you have some rotation with the wingers. Striker's a little bit trickier, where are we going to ask Uzuni to go 90 every game? Like, that's a little tougher because I don't know that you can ask Ramirez to go 90 in any game. And so the striker stuff is a little harder to balance out. But everywhere else, like even with the injuries, there's enough guys that you can shift in and out that there is a rotation plan there that doesn't leave you just completely abandoning hope of winning any of these games.
Yeah, to go back to your boy Manny Perez, you talked about earlier, there's no situation where this year's version of Manny Perez ever sees the field.
Colorado away on a Wednesday where Manny Perez is playing striker and Freddie Kleeman and Aiden Stanley are on your back line.
It's not happening. So we should all be encouraged by that.
All right. Anything else, Jeremiah?
No, let's go ahead and close it out.
All right. We'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Come find us on the internet. On Patreon, we put out a survey about Patreon rewards for this year. We'll go ahead and say publicly that we're looking at doing hats for our highest tier reward. We put out a survey to ask what style of hat you would like to see. So if you're in the Patreon, go on there and let your voice be heard. But we're hoping to get those designs finalized soon and kind of get the ball rolling there. I think that's all. Thanks so much for listening. Me and Mike will be back next week. Jeremiah is duty calls. He'll be traveling for work and won't be able to join me from his hotel this time. So me and Mike will be reviewing the Louisville and Toronto matches, and then we'll preview the San Jose and Houston matches the following week. So it's going to be a busy show, and we'll cover any other Austin FC news. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothing, you never.
La gente.
Oh my God.
Because they love cheap boom boom sauce.
You know?